Counting Sheep by K.R. Moore. After cracking his back for the literal 18th time, Laven plopped in his bed and hastily pulled up the covers. The TV was off and his nighttime cookies were all devoured. There was no light in his room save for the colorful stars alluring in the night sky, which was exactly what he wanted. His entire apartment was silent and serene, perfect for him to pull back his purple locks and slap
on his eye mask.
He had one goal and nothing was to stand in his way. At least he thought so until a loud bang jolted him right into the air. He landed with a thud and grimace, knowing he'd have to stretch again. The sound was followed by bickering and a pair of kicks, and Laven grimaced, knowing he'd have to reprimand his nephew and niece one last time for the week. He marched down the hall and threw open their door to find them tearing up the guest bedroom for a secret. "Hurry up and find it before he gets here," Sora, an African-American curly pink-haired boy with sharp shades, even though it was nighttime, said as he searched through the room. Ida, his twin sister, with sharp violet pigtails decorated in beads, dug into the beds. "I don't see anything at all. He hid it well." Laven just looked at them, ripping and running, unaware of his presence. Their colorful hair and misdeeds reminded him of the antics his older brother got into when they were little. "You two really are your father's kids," he mumbled with a sly smirk before flickering the lights, which petrified the two 8-year-olds to a standstill. Uncle Laven!" Ida shrieked and crawled out from under the bed and stared at him with a gulp. "What are you doing up?" Sora asked, trying to act like the adult in the room. "I should be the one asking you that." "We're looking for the secret code to the TV to turn off the sleep timer," Ida pouted. "We know you have it here. We need the TV on. How do you even know what we're doing anyway?" Laven just quietly looked inside to find a large grand mirror flat on the floor before glaring back at them irritated. "I have no idea," he cleared his throat. "Look, kids, I made the rules clear a week ago when you first arrived here. No TV after 11, and it's midnight. You guys are long overdue for sleep." "But we can't sleep. We have too much energy and need our shows to go to bed." Laven went slack-jawed. "We spent all day at the amusement park, and you're saying you have too much energy? It took everything I had not to crash the moment we got home, and that's only because I was doing laundry." "The only reason you're tired is because you were too busy puking while riding the Gamma Zama coaster behind us," Sora giggled. Both twins cracked up as Laven looked away, flushed in the face with embarrassment. "Oh, you saw that. Well, it doesn't matter. You kids get too many active dreams when sleeping with the TV on, and you'll be even more chaotic when you wake up. Your father was the same way when we were growing up. Believe me, we shared a room." He snatched them up with a hand each and tucked them into their beds and turned on the nightlight despite their protests. "Go to bed. I already told you tomorrow is important for me." The twins giggled in giddy delight. "Oh yeah, you got a date tomorrow, right, Uncle Laven?" Laven chuckled and crossed his arms. "Precisely. After weeks of careful planning, I have secured a night out with the most wonderful lady in my office. She handles the stock reports like a champ. She's assertive when it comes to company negotiations, and she likes to bodybuild on the weekend so she can bench press this entire apartment with everyone in it." His smirk turned devious. "With muscles like hers, I'd never have a boring night again." He mumbled before going pale upon realizing what he just said in front of 8-year-olds who stared at him with wide, curious, magenta eyes. "What do you mean by that?" Sora asked, only to get shushed by Laven, who hurried out the door. "I don't want to hear a peep from you two until sunrise. Count sheep in your head, and you'll be knocked out in no time." With that, he hastily shut the door and ran back to his room, desperate to get his beauty sleep in time. Settled back into bed with his hair tied back and a sleeping mask on once again, Laven laid back in his bed and got settled into silence, and waited, and continued to wait for his mind to drift off to dreamland. After what felt like a while, Laven reluctantly pulled aside his sleeping mask, only to stare in shock at how 45 minutes had passed. It was nearly 1:30 in the morning, and he hadn't felt the least bit tired. Why can't I sleep?" "We're wondering that too," Sora said, suddenly under the covers next to him as Ida snuggled up next to her uncle on the other side. "You kids too? That's really..." Reality finally caught up to Laven, and soon he was in the air, startled to high heaven from the kids suddenly being next to him. "What are you doing here? When did you even get in?" he bellowed before falling to the carpet. "We tried counting sheep, but it didn't work. I got to 200, but I forgot what comes after that," Ida said. "I'll remind your dad to help you with your numbers," Laven sighed, and thought about what could be keeping them up before snapping his fingers. "Of course, we must still be feeling the effects of lingering adrenaline from our time at the park." Question marks practically floated over the kids' heads, to which Laven explained further. "Basically, we had too much fun that our bodies don't want to sleep. It's best to strike this while we can catch it early. Some midnight snacks should help. I'm thinking cookies. In no time flat, the kids rushed to the kitchen to help Laven as he rolled up the ingredients gathered by them and threw on his chef hat while handing them the 2 mini ones he had bought for a similar activity earlier in the week. Once the dough was ready, he got a cookie cutter and shaped them into the outline of sheep to really set the mood. Uncle Laven, it would be awkward for us to wait for these cookies without anything to watch, Sora said with a big smile and pleading eyes. Laven could see the mischievous halo pop over his head and just rolled his eyes. Okay, fine. Go put on one of the streaming services and watch something, but no horror stuff. I've had enough of Hyda's conspiracy theories about dinosaur sheep in a lab or whatever. Hyda pouted and joined Sora on the living room couch. Soon enough, Laven joined them in watching a sitcom while holding out a bowl of freshly baked cookies and poured cups of chocolate milk. They dug in and waited for the drowsiness to set in. However, another 30 minutes had passed by the time a change happened, and instead of yawning, they were bouncing in their seats. What's going on? We should be crawling to bed by now, Laven said, feeling the urge to run a mile in the middle of the night. I don't know. I don't feel sleepy at all, Sora said. You guys followed the ingredients exactly as per my instructions, right? Hyda nodded hyperactively. Yes, sugar, flour, caffeine, chocolate chips. Both Laven and Sora snapped at her with pale faces. Caffeine? There's nothing about adding that in cookies. Did you mean to get caramel? She played with her pajama sleeves. What's the difference? Isn't that what adults drink for energy? Sora asked, to which Laven nodded grimly. Yep, but don't give up hope, guys. We just need another plan. After some brainstorming, Laven brought out a cover and their pillows for the couch. His eyes landed on the clock, which was uncomfortably close to reaching 3 a.m., and hastily threw it over them all. Okay, kids, we're going to just listen to some stories and go to sleep. I'll put on something on YouTube. Sora suddenly pulled at his covers and bounced in his seat on the couch. Ooh, I have a story. Laven smiled surprised. You do? Yeah, let me go get my splash pad. I have a book saved on it. He threw off the covers and scampered to his room to grab his backpack, before returning with a pad and pulling up said story. Laven and Hyda stretched and got comfy under the covers as Sora ran back into the living room and dove under the covers excitedly, snuggling up between them to read his story. It's called The Little Sheep That Could. Once there was a little sheep that was sad he couldn't do a good baa like his friends. Laven rolled his eyes at the silly story, yet appreciated how far Sora had come in his reading and laid back on the pillow. Finally ready to close his eyes as the story went on, he pictured the tale in his mind. The little sheep went into the mirror and practiced his baas nonstop until one day at the local farm's talent show. He did it. He made the biggest baa in front of all the other sheep and won first place. Laven almost called out the illogical nonsense of an animal talent show before he remembered it was a story for babies and just chuckled at the scene played out in his mind. Hyda yawned and plopped her face down on her pillow as well. Sora continued on to the end. The sheep was famous, but something was missing. He wanted to really make a name for himself. While walking along the farm's edges, he spotted some poachers coming to take all the animals for money. Seeing his chance, the sheep sprouted his razor-sharp teeth, unearthed a machete from within his wool, and charged at the poachers with blood-red eyes. The only thing redder than them was the grass after the sheep had finished dismembering and brutalizing the poachers into bite-sized pieces. The animals all came to the scene and cheered the little sheep on. He learned to baa and protect his name. He really was the little sheep that could. The end. Sora set down his tablet with a giggle just to see Laven and Hyda both staring at him with pure blue in the face, with absolute mortified faces. Sora, where did you learn those words? Why would you add that to such a story? He cocked his head. What do you mean? That's what it says in the book. Laven snatched the tablet instantly. It did not say. His eyes popped out as he read the words. It says that. What the actual? This is for kids? He investigated further before biting his lip and dropping the tablet into his lap. Sora, you want to read the title of this book for me? It just says 15 get-out-of-bed stories to start the day, Sora answered playfully, to which Laven just sighed. Hyda stared at him with a quivering lip. I told you the killer sheep is real? It's not real, sweetheart, he sighed, patting her head. It's just from an extremely inappropriate book that I just know your mom downloaded without reading, like that woman always does. After some time, Laven snatched the remote and handed it to the twins. Okay, it's officially past 3. Now that I've set up plans to sue the publishers of that story from the underworld, I'm ready to just call it. I can't sleep, and though you claim you're fine, Sora, I can tell that book didn't do anything to help your adrenaline. So let's just find a nice quiet family movie to sleep to. He plopped on the couch as the twins bickered for a bit on what to watch before finally settling on a nice classic princess movie from the 80s. Laven laid back as the twins snuggled under the covers again. The movie was fun and soothing as he had hoped, though his body refused to let him drift off. After fighting with his mind for about an hour and a half, he finally found himself beginning to doze off. Same with the kids when the climax of the movie played out. His soothing near slumber was interrupted by the sounds of a demonic sheep's cry, and in sync, they peeked to find the prince transforming into a were-sheep under the full moon in all the grisly, unfiltered content of an 80s movie. 1 second, Laven was wide awake again. The next, there was a hole of broken glass where his window was, and outside it was the TV down in the alley. Laven, with a blank face, reeled his foot back after instinctively launching his own TV out the window, and just sighed as Sora and Ida ran up to check the damage. Whoa, isn't that TV expensive? Laven's eye twitched. A little something called insurance fraud will take care of that. If anyone asks, we were robbed. After failing to account that they had picked a movie titled The Princess and the Were-Sheep, Laven had basically given in. It was nearly 5 in the morning, and he was growing delirious from the sleep deprivation. Similar could be said for the twins. Together, they just decided to do whatever they wanted until their bodies inevitably gave out. As surely they had to. Supposedly. From playing video games together and getting demolished online due to barely understanding the screen, to cooking a 5 a.m. lunch and nearly getting the fire department called after burning the hamburgers, to even doing prank calls for absolutely no reason. Laven, with visible bags under his eyes, set down his splash phone after finding the number of his next victim and giggled along with his nephew and niece as he dialed the landline. Hello? A deep voice said, also groggy from the early morning. Hello, is this Johnson's Fortune Teller Emporium? Laven asked through a slurred voice. He was struggling to keep his now unkempt bangs out of his face. Yeah, that's me. How can I help you at this hour? Laven leaned in to hear some suggestions from the kids before sneaking back online. I was just curious. Would you be able to tell me what I will have for dinner yesterday? The man on the end stuttered. Don't you mean what you will have for dinner tonight or tomorrow? Nope. You might as well just tell me last week because there's no such thing as magic. The man was treated to laughter from all three on the other line, as if Laven had just did a good burn. Sir, I very much can read your fortune. Now, would you like to hear a reading, or are you going to keep wasting my time? Why are you getting mad at us? After all, wasting time is your specialty with those scams of yours. Laven wheezed in mindless laughter again. The man on the other end was silent for a moment. Aw, don't be upset. We're just playing with you. The man scoffed and audibly shuffled some cards over the line before speaking again. Don't worry, Lavender Rose II, age 29, who lives on Thomas Street. I'm not offended. Laven's laugh slowly dimmed as he heard his full name and street location get called out. How did you? He flipped more cards. Let's see. Says you're calling me because you and your family can't sleep. Well, enjoy these days now, because in 2 years, you will father quadruplets all at once with a spouse. If you think sleep is bad now, then, he chuckled arrogantly. Well, then again, I shouldn't say too much about fortunes. After all, they are just scams. Good night. The line clicked dead as Laven and the others stared at the phone with a blank face. One moment, he was straight-faced and stared dead ahead with a cold sweat. The next, his phone was on top of the TV in the alleyway, along with a bit of drywall from when he ripped it out. Laven stood by the window looking down at it as if he had just foreseen the apocalypse. Sora and Ida shuffled up next to it with a billion questions before the latter finally blurted in excitement, We're going to get cousins? Laven remained unmoved and simply let his dry eyes twitch. Don't believe in scams, kids. But he knew all about us, and Sora stuttered before Laven snapped with bloodshot eyes to him, with an insane smile of pure panic. Don't believe in scams, kids! Eventually, after hours of insomnia, the sun rose into the morning and soon afternoon. Around 3 p.m., a red Jeep pulled up outside of Laven's apartment, where a man resembling him, but with slicked back purple cornrows in a suit, stepped out. After a long week of fun with his wife, he had a pep in his step, only to freeze and look to the side where a broken TV, a phone, and a pile of other junk laid in the alleyway. Oh no, was all he could muster before rushing up the stairs to grab his kids. He knocked on the door to Laven's apartment, only for it to slip wide open unlocked. Laven, you in here? I'm back to pick up the kids. The sight of the living room was a disaster to behold. The window had a gaping hole in it. The TV was missing. There was a hole in the wall where he presumed a landline once was, and the floor was littered with cookie crumbs, spilled drinks, and pillows and more. His brother then appeared from the pantry door and strolled into the kitchen with peanut butter, jelly, and a book. "Oh, hey there, Perry. Come on in." But Dad didn't even know where to begin. Laven? What happened here?" "Oh, nothing much. The kids and I just had some trouble sleeping last night, so we decided to stay up until we got to our second win, and I think it's finally starting to hit," he said as he cracked open the dictionary and spread the condiments along the pages as the bread sat on the counter behind him unopened. "You know, I was afraid of being unkempt for my date, but I think it's fine." "Right." He eyed his kids coming back from their rooms, both dazed and sleepy, having a nonsense conversation in what was supposed to be English. "Oh, hi, Daddy," Ida said, waving to the side of her as Perry stood in front. "Hi, kids. Why don't we go home to get a lot of sleep and let Uncle Laven here rest? I'll get your stuff." After hastily packing and carrying his kids' backpacks to the car, Perry whipped out a checkbook and scribbled on it before gently grabbing the dictionary Laven was trying to eat from his grasp. "I know it's not right to pay family for babysitting, but why don't you take these to pay for a new TV, new phone, and He froze upon looking behind him to notice a demonic hex with characters in a language foreign to him written in red ink on the wall. In the center was an icon of a sheep. His brother slowly craned his head back to Laven in a cold sweat. Little bro, you mind telling me what that is?" "Oh, that's just the prophecy of the sheep getting. After a few encounters last night, we all hate sheep and are preparing for when they take over. I'm surprised nobody's talking about it, really." Perry just shared his own blank face and quickly wrote up a third check. "Okay, you're also going to take this to buy paint and color over that." He sighed. "I don't know what happened here, but get some rest, and thank you for watching the kids. My wife and I really needed that week in the Bahamas. I hope this date of yours tonight will be the one, and I can return the favor one day." Laven laughed nonsensically. "No problemo, but this man is not having kids. Zora, Ida, have a good one." He waved as Perry picked them up with one arm each. As soon as the door shut behind him, he was greeted to the sound of both kids finally collapsing on his shoulders, out cold. 6 p.m. hit, and Laven, after having cleaned up the living room, sat there for a bit, waiting for his date. He eyed his reflection on his phone, looking almost decent for someone who hadn't slept in 35 hours. Finally, a knock on the door caught his attention, and he leapt up, tripped, then leapt up again to grab the door, revealing a well-dressed woman with green hair, red glasses, a rosy gown, and had an impressive build from hitting the gym every 2 days. "Ah, Blossom, it's a pleasure to finally spend the afternoon with you," he said through yawns. Blossom, despite her attire, shared her own eye bags. She hunched over a bit while walking in, and fought the urge to yawn even more. "Sorry, Laven. I'm glad I made it, but I admit I'm tired. I spent the whole week watching over my sister's 10 kids. It's a pleasure to be here, though." Laven blinked absent-mindedly. 10 kids? That's insane! "I know. Why couldn't she stop at 4? I love all 10 of them dearly, but I've been pledging since I was little that if I ever had kids, I'd stop at 4. A bonus if I have all of them at once," she chuckled. War flashbacks ravaged Laven's mind for a second, before he casted them aside and refocused on the date. His moment had finally arrived, and nothing was to stop him. "We still have about an hour before our reservation. Why don't we wait in my room where the TV is?" After getting settled on Laven's bed, the two fought the urge to crash right there as he flipped to the channels to find something romantic to play. The idea of the perfect show to play while sneaking in for a first date kiss crossed his mind as he began typing the channel number, only for it to stop halfway and flip somewhere as the remote fell to the ground to the sounds of the man finally falling asleep.
Blossom snapped her look over to find him sleeping with his hand still outstretched and just smiled relieved. "Oh, I'm right there with you." She laid back and set her timer to wake them up in an hour when the TV, which had flipped to the news, suddenly began to air a breaking story. And we return to our breaking news about the rumored dinosaur-sheep hybrid that scientists created revealed to be real and escaped captivity. Here's footage of the very creature moments before escape. Without warning, Blossom was greeted to the sight of a diabolical mutant of unholy creation roaring up close at the camera. Her bodybuilder reflexes activated and the drowsiness vanished from her body. A second later, Laven slowly opened up his eyes to find his bed with him still on it, flying towards his TV. The end.
Counting Sheep by K.R. Moore.